Hello, everybody. It's the second flight, the second episode of Nine and Wine on KTSM TV. Appreciate the guys over at the TV station. Our two experts that participate in this little endeavor are both amazing experts in wine, and it's Mike Hackett and Chris Lane, both who are sommeliers. Chris is I think a level up from Mike. Mike's a new sommelier this last year.
He's the pro.
He's the pro?
I'm in learning. I'm a sommelier in training.
I'm a pro too, but just at drinking. At drinking, I'm really good. But hey, today we're going to be talking about bubbles, champagne, prosecco, cava, cremant, sparkling wine, and we're going to talk a little bit about what all those words mean, because I'm totally confused by that, by the way, but we'll get to that. But first, I think Chris is going to introduce us to some bubbles.
Yeah, let's start with what everybody knows. Everybody knows champagne, and everybody, unfortunately, calls everything champagne normally. Even I do it sometimes. I'll tell somebody, oh, grab all those champagne bottles over there. You know, I mean, I know they're not all champagne, but it's just a term that everybody knows and can use. So while I'm doing this, I want to point out one thing. The main city that all of this comes from is spelled like it would be pronounced Reims. But in French, of course, nothing can be easy. So the pronunciation of the word is actually Reims. It's nowhere close to Reims. The way the French pronounce it is Reims. So Reims is a very amazing city, and they have, I believe their Cathedral of Notre Dame is actually bigger than the Paris version of Notre Dame. Yes.
That's good.
All kings for about 800 years, all kings were crowned in Reims, in the Cathedral of Notre Dame de Reims. So when we open a bottle of champagne, you want to put it a little bit of an angle. You want the bubble to be somewhere around here if you can. You normally twist it a couple of times to get it to open a little, to get the cork. Now remember, it's pressurized, so the cork wants to come out.
Sure.
So you're supposed to not let it make a pop. It's always going to make a little bit of a sound. If you do it right, we just call it the angel's whisper, is just a little bit. I might not get it right this time, but we'll try to see how little noise you can. Obviously, I didn't do it that well. Opa! Yay! So anyway, but you're supposed to make as little noise as you possibly can. Now, one of the things that champagne is known for is the amount of bubbles and the smallness of the bubbles. So I don't know if you saw the way it foamed up right there, but that obviously means there's a lot of carbonation to this, and we can talk about that in just a little while.
Interesting.
So the flavors you're going to be looking for are very yeasty because of the secondary fermentation. We can get into that in a second also. You're supposed to taste bread and yeast and almonds and things like that. That's the sign of a high quality champagne, is the yeastiness flavors that go with it.
And what are we drinking here? Did you say?
Yeah, this is champagne. This is the real deal. This is champagne from Reims. Epernay is the other town that has a lot of champagne. It's all within the Champagne region, but the two biggest towns are Reims and Epernay.
And I've been to Epernay, by the way. Went to Claude Lebrun's champagne. He was
Nice.
the champagne maker. Stayed in his home. It was an amazing trip. But I've been there. This is nice. I like this.
Oh, delicious.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I was doing my level 1 testing, it comes with a class where 4 master somms are actually teaching you. And every one of them, over the course of 2 days, people would ask them, well, what's your favorite wine? To a man, all 4 said champagne. So champagne is, I mean, we're talking these are better than, first growth Bordeaux's. These are better than, Romani Conti, Burgundy. I mean, these guys are considering this the best thing they've ever put in their mouth. So I know it's a little harder to get to know. We take it for granted, but the depth of champagne is there. I'm still not there. I still wouldn't say champagne is the best wine for me yet, but someday I hope to see if I can understand it thoroughly.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to continue with Chris and Mike, and we're going to talk a little bit about all the different names for bubbles, which have me totally confused, and I'll bet you there's a bunch of you that don't know all about it either, and we're going to talk about that right after this. Hi, everybody. We're continuing now with Nine and Wine with sommeliers. Sommeliers? Am I even saying it right? Anyway, our two experts are Chris Lane and Mike Hackett. We appreciate them joining us today. And today we are talking bubbles. Bubbles.
Hey, Andy, turn the label so they can see what you're holding there.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. There you go.
That would make sense to actually show what it is that we're talking about. I mean, what a novel thought.
Right. So what you're holding in your hand there is actually a Cremant. It's from France, made in the Champagne style. The best ones come from the Loire Valley. Most of them do. So it would be French bubbles, but not made in Champagne. Then we have a couple other styles. We have Poima, which would be our Cava, which is made in Spain. Prosecco, which is up in Italy. We didn't bring any Asti, though.
No, we didn't.
Asti Spumante is another.
Shame on you.
Francia Cortez. I mean, we could get really deep down this rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
we could. There's a lot. And then you have the American Brut, Champagne, Sparkling, whatever they want to call it, they get to call it. So
Well, that
That's
actually brings me.
America. They can't call it champagne. They have to call it sparkling.
Well, that actually brings me
They're supposed
to the question that I had right here at the very beginning, because bubbles for me is the all-encompassing word, but there is champagne, there is Prosecco, there is Cava, there's Cremant, there's sparkling wine, and that represents a pretty big level of confusion for me as a consumer. Please, can you explain each one of those? And
really, it goes down to how they're being made. So we're looking at Champagne is a style of wine where you're going through 2 fermentations and then a final dosage that when you seal the bottle. That'd be the traditional style, normally done in a oak or stainless steel.
and pretty much considered the best style.
Yes.
yeah,
But just because Champagne uses the best style, and they're the ones who invented it, doesn't mean that other people can't use that style. They just can't call it Champagne, but they can still say they make it just like Champagne. So in French, it's called méthode champenoise. It means the Champagne method.
So
But
do
it's
the
not
grapes?
Champagne.
Do the grapes have to be grown in that region in Epernay and that area
To be called Champagne, they
called
do.
champagne? Yeah.
But can you say the French really did it? Because if you think back in history, right? So the way this all started is France made sparkling wine. It was by accident. They were shipping wine into England in huge barrels. And the British were great at making glass. So when they would get their wine in barrels, they would decant it into bottles and sell it by the bottle. Well, they found out that the stuff coming from northern part of France in the Champagne area was becoming bubbly. And it would blow the tops off the bottles when they opened it, so they liked the pop. The French found out that the Brits liked this and it was a market, and they perfected the way of doing
The
it.
French didn't want there to be bubbles.
They didn't want it to be bubbly. They thought it was ruining the wine.
What happened? They did. They thought it was a mistake. Dom Perignon was not brought in to make champagne. He was brought in to get rid of the bubbles.
To make still wine.
Dom Perignon's job of why they moved that monk to that area was to get rid of the bubbles. And to give everybody a real quick background, the reason it had bubbles in the north was because fermentation couldn't finish because it wasn't warm enough to finish. So they thought it was finished because it wasn't bubbling in the vat anymore. So they'd bottle it up, and then come springtime when things warmed up, the bottle started exploding because it did this secondary fermentation in the bottle. All an accident.
So champagne was really an accident.
Absolutely an accident. And now
Look at
they
that.
use that exact same accident and that exact same secondary fermentation in the bottle to do it right. But it was the English. Mike's right. It was the beer country that knew how to make a bottle that would handle the pressure of beer. They're the ones who saved everything.
So when you talk about champagne versus Prosecco versus Cava versus Cremant versus sparkling wine, that's not a pecking order. They're just from different regions, yes?
Correct.
Correct.
But the one does not infer that all champagnes are better than all Cremants.
The people from Champagne probably would.
Well, that's the marketing guys, right?
Yeah, of course.
The marketing
Of
guys say,
course.
of course, champagne is the best in the world.
Yeah. I've had some Cremants and some Cavas that I think will rival Champagne. I do, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Cava, and we can get into it later. So what we'd like to do probably is just give an overview today of all the different types and then dive deep into each one of these as we go. But I did
Good
want
idea.
to say,
Good idea.
because it goes with your question right now, there's a group of Spaniards who are going, we make more sparkling wine, we make more bubbles than anybody else by far.
That's Cava, right?
And we're getting
Cava?
to be known as the cheap bubbles. And we don't like that. So there's a group in Spain that is starting to make really high-end cavas that absolutely rival Champagne.
Well, that's interesting. So one does not infer price. You're not going to say Cronauts are cheaper than Cavas, Cavas are cheaper than Proseccos, and sparkling wines are cheaper than all of them.
Unfortunately, champagne is always expensive. Unfortunately.
So
It's
it would be the most
always
pricey
expensive.
of the bubbles? It would be the most pricey?
It just is, because you know why? Because they can.
Marketing.
Because of the widow, Clicquot.
Marketing.
Yes.
If you charge more, the perception of value or quality goes.
Well, probably only 10% of their product comes to the States.
Yeah.
90% of the champagne's consumed in France.
A lot of it is. Russia, too, likes it. I mean,
Yeah. In Europe.
So are we going to talk about each one of these specifics, by the way, the Iron Horse?
if you want to just do the overview of it, I'd like to say that
just overview.
that the Cremant and the Cava are both made, and probably the sparkling wine, I'm not sure exactly. These two are made the exact same way that the champagne is made, which is a lot of work. A lot of work. And we can get into that because we're talking about champagne this time. But it's a lot of work. It is triple the amount of work that Prosecco has to do. Triple.
Explain that a little bit about why would it be more work to make one versus the other?
Because there's two fermentations. There's the fermentation in the vat, and then there's a second fermentation in the bottle.
Well, from the picking point of it.
Well, yeah.
But
Huge
still
flavor
wine is the same process, right? I mean, it's in the barrel.
The first half of it is.
The first half.
But not the second half. Second half of the secondary fermentation that really makes the bubbles in the... Because the bubbles that are made in the vat, they just escape into the atmosphere. It's the bubbles that are made in the bottle that give the product the bubbles.
Does it stay longer aging in the bottle than it does the cask? The barrel, I mean?
Much more. 10 times more.
Give an example.
Yeah, like probably 2 or 3 months in the vat and 3 or 4 years in the bottle.
And is it like wine where, like some red wines are worth a lot more money when they're been aged for longer?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
the longer the aging process. Is there an average for bubbles?
That's a good question. I don't know about that. But,
No,
but
'cause
you're teetering around another question that is very, very, very important. And when you think about areas like Burgundy, where just about every square foot is named and noted and different. When you go through the Côte d'Or, you have Givre-Chambertin, you have Nuit Saint-Georges, and you have all the different villages, and they're all different AOCs. Champagne, very, very, very intentionally, that whole big region is one AOC because they want to be able to say, well, this year, this field or this side of the hill was better than this side of the hill, or the top was better than the valley, or this, and they want to be able to blend their, what they call their cuvée beforehand the way they want to, and they don't want to have to say, well, this is 90% this area and 10%. They don't want to say that. It's all champagne.
Interesting.
It's all champagne, so that they can mix from anywhere they want, and they also mix years. They mix last year's and 2 years ago with this year, because they're also trying to make a product that doesn't change a lot. When you open the champagne, it tastes like last year's champagne, and it tastes like the year before champagne. They blend years together, and this is a long story for what I'm trying to get to. But the point is that every once in a blue moon, about once a decade, they will have a stellar year, and then they would put only that year's grapes in that bottle.
Like regular wine, where you can only have, if it's a vintage 2015, they can only have 2015 grapes,
Correct,
right?
except for in America. But yes, everywhere else, it only makes sense to put that year in there, which all other wine is that way, because nobody wants to keep last year's wine or 2 years ago wine. They don't want to keep that. They want to sell it. So if you have noticed or haven't noticed, champagne almost never has a date on it. Because
I noticed from these right here, the only one I see that has a date on it is the sparkling wine, the American Iron Horse.
So if there's a date on champagne, which is super rare, that means it's really, really
Only
good.
that year.
And that year was really good, and that's called a vintage. So they'll actually put the vintage on there. See, they can't put a vintage on this bottle because what year is it? They don't even know. Well, they probably do.
They do,
but it's multiple years.
There's no marking on the back or something that lets them know that it came from a certain year?
No. I really wish that they'd put a marking on the back that said what year it was bottled. I don't care what year the grapes come from. I get all that.
Yeah.
But I sure as shit would like to know. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Whoops. I sure would like to know how old the bottle I have in my cellar is, because there's no telling how old this is. I come across this in 10 years. It's all dusty. I pull it out. I was like, should I drink it or should I not drink it? I don't know how old it is unless I've kept good records.
So maybe you're just going to write it on with a grease pencil when you first buy it.
Exactly.
So
you know, if nothing else, you're right. Purchased in this year. Doesn't even mean it could be a year old by the time you get it, or
Could be
2,
5.
or
Well,
3.
more than likely, it's set on in the bottle at vineyard for 4
you got all that,
to 10 years.
But when was it bottled? When did they decide it was ready? I really would like to know that date. I understand all the rest is different, but that is one little thing. But you're right. I should probably just put the date on when I buy it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
Or just buy Prestige because you got to get some vintage, right?
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take just a quick little break, and we're going to come right back, and then we're going to kind of go to an overview of each of these, the Champagne, Prosecco, Cava, Cremant, sparkling wine. Talk a little bit about that.
All right.
9 and Wine. We're coming right back.
Perfect.
Thanks, Andy.
So, 9 and Wine continues. I'm Andy Watley. We have our experts in the house, Mike Hackett and Chris Lane. And I think Mike's going to open up and give us kind of the beginning stages of an overview of the whole mysteries of Champagne, Prosecco, Cava, Cremant, and sparkling wine.
Okay, so the Cremant, the Cava, the Champagne, the sparkling wine, all made the same way. They're using a double fermentation. It starts in a tank. The great big houses are still using oak barrels. Most of them are using stainless steel tanks. They do a fermentation there. As it's cooled down, they put it back in the bottle, they add a little more yeast, and they let it ferment again. And by controlling the temperature, they're able to control it. Now, in the old days, it was all done naturally in France because that's where they were, up in the north part of France. It would basically stop the fermentation in the winter. Spring would come, it re-ferments. Then you go through a riddling process, they call it, and they put them in these racks. And then there was a wrong. How do you say the guy's name that would do the riddling?
Oh, I don't
The riddler.
Right, but it was also the widow who invented that too. She did 2 great things: her marketing and the riddling.
The widow
Clicquot.
I'm terrible at French and trying to pronounce these words. We'll let
The expert is sitting right
I'll
here.
let him.
You have all the yeast sitting here for 2 or 3 years, and to get it out, you want it to all end up being here. So the riddling would be a couple of turns a week, and then they would go up to another hole and a couple of turns a week, and then another hole. So it would take months to get this done because every hole had a different angle. And in the end, it was sitting like this, and you turn it so all of the yeast and the junk was here ready to come out. And one of the small things that, a lot of people don't realize, it's a very, very unique neck up here to the bottle. So while it's going through this whole process, it has a beer cap on it. So you see how that holds a beer cap?
Sure.
So this whole, it doesn't get that big old cork.
You don't get the cork until the
It
end.
doesn't get the cork till the very end.
I never noticed that before.
So this is made for 2 different stoppages, I guess. One is the beer cap that it goes through most of its life with, and one is the regular cork.
So they finally put the cork in when it's all done.
When it's all
and
done.
then they foil it and wire it. And,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. So, and the next one then. Let's
So
go.
before they put the cork in, they're doing the riddling. They have to get the yeast out of there,
Yeah.
unless it's pet nat, and I guess that's become a big thing now.
I purposely didn't bring it. Sorry.
Okay.
I had one.
I didn't know they had any.
I had one.
I just read about it. They put it in an ice bath that freezes the yeast just in the neck of the bottle. They pop it off, and if you can imagine, this guy's pulling that out. The yeast shoots out. He caps it again with the cork, but before he does, he puts a little dosage, which is a little liqueur and a little sugar back in there to replace the little bit of wine that's been lost out. And this is all done by perfection. Re-racked, and then it sits in the bottle for anywhere from, 15 months to 4 years is the minimums, depending on whether...
And they do that by hand, by the way? They do it manually?
They did originally.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore.
You have machines that do it now?
They have machines.
I was going to say, because if you're doing thousands of bottles, I mean, my God. how
Oh, they
would
said
you ever
the guy who could do it was...
Well, I just
would
don't. I don't get how they get the dosage in
without...
with all that pressure.
Right. How are you getting that in and corking it at the same time? And so then that goes back.
Magic.
Yeah.
It was
makes a
magic.
little more bubble. The Prosecco is the only one that's made a little different. It's all steel tank. It's everything takes place in the vat. So you do your second fermentation in the steel tanks. They mix it up, then they dispense it, and they put a dosage in it before they?
Yeah, for sure.
Before they top
Well, I
it?
think they put the dosage in the tank.
In the tank. Okay, that was it. They filter the tank before they bottle. So everything takes place in the tank. They bottle and cork it.
A little different process than.
A little different.
Very different process. This is a third of the work. A third of the work.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is that reflected in the prices that we pay?
absolutely.
For sure. And in the flavor. You're going to lose some of the nuttiness and whatnot because that last bottling where they add that little dosage and everything still impacts the flavor. You're going to spend more time on the lees, which is on the yeast that's in there, than you will on a Prosecco.
Well, let's move on to the sparkling wine now.
Same as champagne,
It's normally the same.
normally.
Yeah, and I was looking on the label right now. A lot of times they will say champagne, made in the champagne method or something. This one doesn't say it. But, American laws are very different. They don't have to say exactly how they made it. But it's almost, if Americans are going to take the time to make a sparkling wine, they're normally going to do it right.
It's kind of an embarrassment for me because champagne is a beautiful word. Prosecco is a beautiful word. Cava is a beautiful word. Cremant is a beautiful word. And in America, it's sparkling wine.
I know.
I mean, we'll talk about boring. I mean, what's up with that?
All the good names were taken.
I guess that's why they call it Brut, right? A lot of them are calling it Brut Rose, or Jay makes a Brut Rosé. But I don't know that really pertains to the dryness or not. On American wines.
Really? Oh, good question. I would hope it would. Oh,
But,
they might not have to.
Yeah.
American laws are very loose.
Yeah.
They're very, very loosey-goosey. And I don't know. I don't like that particularly, but I just assumed if it said Brut, it had to be Brut. Wow.
Well, that brings up a good question because that's another one of my mysteries.
I mean, even in France, the percentages of residual sugar have changed over the years between a Brut and a semi.
So sweet wines used to be very popular.
Yeah.
So the most expensive wine in the world during the reign of Louis XIV and XVI was German wine, sweet wine.
Yeah.
That was the most expensive wine. That was considered the best wine on the planet. So our palates have changed over time.
So it brings up a good question you just brought up about Brut, though, because for me, I never knew that Brut Cuvée meant that it was a dry, finer champagne. I had no idea. Is that what that means?
Well, so technically Cuvée it's the mixture, it's the blending of the bottles of the blending of the years and the fields together to what the winemaker wants to actually go forward with. That's what the cuvée is. It's how, and that's where a lot of people say the magic happens. It's how well your wine maker is mixing the wines to go forward with the rest of the process. That's all that cuvée really means.
But when I see Cuvée on a French label, I'm automatically thinking of Prestige Cuvée because it's
Right. Well, that cuvée was prestigious, but the word
I see what you mean. Yeah,
it doesn't.
It's part of the process.
That in itself is just.
But they
part of
put
the
it on a
process.
label. It's
But a Brut
misleading.
Cuvée is
That's
more
what it
expensive than just a champagne?
I don't know. It's a cuvée prestige. It's that this mixture of wines to go forward with to make our champagne was a superior mixture. So this cuvée was superior
And
to
all
last
from the
year's
same
cuvée.
same winery.
And by the way, are ratings for champagne for any of these Cava, Cremant, are the ratings the same as the ratings given to standard wines, typical wines?
Well, don't get me started on ratings. Sorry.
Well, can you give
Ratings
us a short
ratings
answer
are
to that?
one man's opinion,
Yeah, or a magazine's opinion.
or two people or a committee's
Yeah.
opinion.
So it's just totally subjective.
Oh,
Totally.
completely.
It's like me. If I
Matter
said
of fact-
Rombauer is a 9.9, you'd say Andy. Rombauer is at best a 6.
Exactly.
There's one very, very, very well-known rater that I detest, and I know exactly. I use him still because if he rates it high, I know not to buy it.
Well, then it works either way.
Exactly.
But you know.
I do not like his opinion.
So it's kind of like movie reviewers or restaurant critics. Or
But you can
whatever.
use it to your advantage. You don't like them, so you don't. So if you
Exactly.
can find somebody who, if you like the way Wine Spectator rates them, then when you're going into Specs or Total Wine or your local wine store, they usually have their ratings there next to the wines, and then they also have their local picks. Local wine buyers do their own picks as well, and you learn to trust the same people because it'll adapt. It's all perspective.
So they're not like committees that do this. It could be a single person.
I guess like Wine Advocate is a committee, isn't it? Must be.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so a group of them agreed.
Yeah,
That's
but
a
Robert
9.5.
Parker's Robert Parker.
But the question I really had in the beginning was the grading system, the 9 or the 92
94,
or whatever.
90
is
plus.
Is that done the same for champagne as it is for wine?
I would imagine so, but you also very rarely see a rating on a French wine. I don't know if I could ever see a rating on a French wine. Like on the label, ranked 92 points.
So that's really more
On the label,
American
never on
wines?
the label,
More American wines have those
Yeah,
ratings?
mostly American. It's an American system.
Nah, I guess I've
And
seen
you're
it in
French,
Wine
so I know.
Spectator.
Okay.
Since you're
when they're
French.
rating wines by the price, right? So they'll say, and that's another rating difference. Like Wine Spectator does ratings based on price. Wine bottles under $20. Well, under $20 getting 90 points is not the same as a $50 bottle getting 90 points. Okay, and then they'll have their overall picks, and those are the. But again, it's their opinion or their committee's opinion based
But
on
it would be.
And
So of wines that get ratings, there would be no difference for champagne. It would be rated just as
Just
any
like
other
everything else.
category would be rated.
or sparkling wine. Yeah.
Well, here's a different question, kind of off that path a little bit, since you kind of covered most of that. How did champagne or bubbly become associated with celebration? Why? What's the connection?
It was used, as he said, in the city of
Reims.
Rennes.
Reims.
Rennes. That's where the coronations took place for all the French kings for years. So what was the wine of the location was champagne. It was bubbles. It was just a natural thing.
That's what they had there. But also Veuve Clicquot actually did fantastic marketing. And it was not, outside of the coronation, it was very, the nobility didn't drink it. And so she went off to the Russians and sold it to the Russians, and they loved it. So it's hilarious beyond hilarious. The Russian nobility, the czars, came to Reims, and they would, or to Paris, wherever the king was, and they'd be like, wait, why aren't we drinking your fantastic champagne? And, can you imagine Louis XII going, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, we love this stuff. So it's actually the czars convinced the kings of Spain, of France, and probably Spain. No, this is what we drink.
Interesting.
Who was the guy who brought it to the States, though? It wasn't her. There was another guy.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I forgot.
I was
But
gonna
there was a different vintner who brought it to the United States. And
so we danced around Brut quite a bit, and I wanted to get into that just a little bit.
Yeah, please
We've
do.
mentioned dosage 3 or 4 times already, and this is a good test question too. How many different dosages are there?
Oh, I have to count.
Well, why don't you first tell us what a dosage is?
Seven
What
dosages.
is a dosage?
So, okay,
Brut.
as Mike had said, when you get all the yeast out, there's a void in the bottle now. Well, you got to fill the bottle back up again. You can't be selling a bottle that's only filled to this high. You got to fill it back up again. So you could just fill it back up again with champagne, but that would make it extremely dry, and that's called Brut Natural. Brut Nature. It means there's nothing in it. And everywhere from then on, it's some champagne with some, well, we like to say sugar, but it's really
not
grape
sugar,
juice.
it's
It's grape
liqueur,
juice
yeah.
that has a lot of sugar in it. So it's grape juice mixed with champagne, and those are your different dosages. So Brut it's Brut Nature, it's extra Brut, then regular Brut. So regular Brut's already 3 down from the top, and then semi-sec, which is semi-Brut, and it goes all the way down to Dieu. And Dieu is sweet. That's where they don't put any champagne in it. They just put more grape juice, so it's the sweetest one there is. So Prosecco would probably be in the demi-sec region normally. Brut Natures are very rare, very hard to find. Americans are drinking a little bit more of it, but Brut is by far the happy medium between sugar and dryness. And even though you wouldn't think there's much sugar in there, there is some. Anyway, I keep saying sugar, but I mean grape juice. So a little bit of sweetness, because straight champagne's really, really dry, and something about the bubbles makes it feel even more astringent on your palate.
Gotta imagine it's super acidic too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because
Well, we've had some pretty
That's why you
interesting-
leave it on the lees, is to kind of cut that acidity. You know what we didn't talk about? English.
Tell me.
Well, there's
English bubbles
there's a
are-
good jumping off point there, because
Okay.
we're gonna come back, talk a little bit about English, and for just a moment, because we're gonna wrap it up here pretty quick. But we're gonna come back with 9 and Wine in just a moment. So 9 and Wine continues. Andy Watley with our experts, Mike Hackett Chris Lane, sommeliers, with the El Paso Winefest as well. And you'd mentioned something before we cut away for a second, and you said something about English. Could you expand on that?
England's coming back into the wine scene, and I got to say back, because you got to look at history. Wherever the Romans went, they took wine. And there was wine in Europe and in England at one point. But in the 1300s, there was a global warming or climate change. And actually the climate came down and England got colder to where they couldn't grow grapes. Now we see global warming, climate change again coming in. I'll call it climate change because this isn't the first time it's happened in the world, and it's not going to be the last. Excuse me. But now England is growing some very good Chardonnays. It's a great place for growing Pinots, and they're getting more popular for their sparkling wine that they're starting to make over in England. So I'm looking for a couple bottles.
And it's not bad. I've had about 2 bottles, and if I was doing it on a blind test, I never would have thought it was English.
We had a little while we were over there when we were visiting this last year in Europe, but it was interesting. I was surprised.
Well, I'll tell you, from my perspective, I've learned a lot today that I didn't already know, and I'll bet you everybody else did too. This is obviously a topic that could stand a lot more conversation, and we will continue more on bubbles in another edition of 9 and Wine. We appreciate your watching. Please tell your friends about us. And by the way, be sure to check out elpasowinefest.com for more information on the best
wine event.
Wine and food event
in the Southwest.
The entire weekend in the Southwest. So thank you very much. This is 9 and Wine. Appreciate your being with us.
Salad.
I'd drink that all day long.